The first concept that Paul mentions in 1 Corinthians 13:13 is faith. Now, faith comes from the Hebrew word emunah, and that comes from the root aleph mem nun, amun or emun. And this word is a very, very special word in Hebrew. Often it seems that it's translated in our English Bibles as believe or belief or faith. But the word in Hebrew has a much, much deeper feeling, a much more active feeling. In fact, it is a word that is used for a foster parent. Can you imagine a foster parent? It has the meaning of steadfastness. It has the meaning of building. It is a word that has substance to it. Well, where do you think the first mention of this word is in the Bible? Well, it's found in Genesis chapter 15. And this is part of the call of Abraham. And God says in Genesis 15 that Abraham believed in God and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. Now that word believe in your scripture, and maybe it's something else if you have a different translation, is this word amun, emunah, faith, steadfastness, something you can build upon, something you can absolutely, totally trust in because it's built upon the idea that God is totally trustworthy. Now, when you think about Abraham, what was this about this man that made him willing to leave his home and his country and his family and everything that he had ever known to go to a place that he didn't even know where he was going? I can just imagine the conversation with Mrs. Abraham. Dear, we're going on a trip. Oh, well, okay. Where are we going? Well, I don't know. What? You don't know where we're going? How will we get there? How will we know when we've arrived? We will know because God will show us. Can you imagine as a wife being willing to follow that? What amazing faith they had. I have a personal affinity for this story because you see, my husband and I did basically the same thing. We had a word from God where God spoke to us and said, I am going to make Israel the place where you minister for me. I am going to establish you in the land of Israel. And it took some time before it happened, but we never lost trust in that because His word was so strong in our hearts and our minds. And we had both been raised in homes where we were taught about the faithfulness, the steadfastness, the goodness of God. So I feel in some ways like I did a similar thing that Abraham and Sarah did. I left my home, I left my family, I left my country of birth. And for the last 30 years, my husband and I have been living and ministering in Israel, living our lives day to day in a state of faith in the God who is more than enough. Now let's look at Hebrews 11, a couple of verses here about Abraham. So I want to look at verse 8. It says, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out not knowing where he was going. What an amazing thing. God says in this book, this chapter of Hebrews, that it's impossible to please Him without having this kind of faith. Now that should be a little bit scary. God is asking not just for some kind of mental assent, a belief in a creed, or a belief in a doctrine. God is saying, I'm asking you to trust me with your life, with your future, with everything that you will do or know or see going forward. I'm asking you to give total allegiance to me. That's what Abraham did. And I believe that's what He's asking of all of His children worldwide. Will you trust me? Will you have total faith in me? Will you go where I ask you to go? Will you do this even when you don't understand everything? That's faith.